Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being with me on this journey. Today, my special guest is Laura Templeton. Laura is an international speaker and the author of 30-Second Success, Ditch the Pitch and Start Connecting. She is also a communication consultant and chief instigator of 30-Second Success. Laura works with inspiring business owners and professionals who understand the power of connecting and want to make the most of their networking with an impactful 30-second message that leads to deeper conversations and more opportunities. Laura inspires audiences around the world to dig deep and find the words that define who they are and how they serve others. Helping business owners and professionals ditch the pitch and start connecting is her passion and her mission. Welcome, Laura. Thanks so much for being today with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really enjoying getting to know you more. Thank you.
Tell us more about your story and how you started on this path of helping others build their messages and their 30-second message more specifically.
Where this all transpired was in my networking. I had about 15 years of networking and developing small businesses, doing network marketing. And I had always used networking as part of my marketing strategy. So when you're in that networking environment, you have an opportunity to get to know the people that you're connecting with and the people that you're spending time with. And what I found, I had stepped into a leadership role with one of the organizations that I had belonged to for a while. And the members were really struggling to communicate effectively who they are in 30 seconds or less when you have to go around the room and explain what it is that you do to the other members and guests. So what was happening, and I was very visually aware after stepping into that leadership role that my members were struggling. And one of the biggest questions that I was getting is, who can you bring in to teach us how to do our 30-second messages? Because it became obviously painful that many of them were struggling. There were women that would either just kind of go on and on and on about what they did and not want to stop even when the bell was rung. There were other women who would say stuff that totally did not align with what they were doing. It just really didn't make any sense. And then there were other women I had one woman who used to literally go to the ladies' room and not come back until after everybody was done doing their 30-second messages. So when I watched what was happening within the room, I started to look for someone who could teach, and I wasn't finding anybody. There were a lot of people out there teaching about networking at the time and how to build relationships through your network. They weren't specifically teaching how to do your 30-second message. And I had learned how to do that from the years that I had in network marketing and all the training that I had. I had, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite authors is Brian Tracy, and he teaches how to do your 30-second message. And I actually used a formula that I had learned years ago, but I had tailored it to make it work for me. When I started teaching people how to step into ownership of their message and really connecting with that emotion and what really drives them to do what they do, we started to see transformations in the group. Well, as you know, networkers don't just network in one place, they network elsewhere. So word got out that I was teaching people how to do the 30-second message. And I started getting more requests to teach it to other groups, and my client base started growing. And probably about a year into it, I came home one day and I said to my husband, I think I know what I'm going to do next. And I told him about this business idea, and he's like, are people going to pay you to do that? And I started laughing. I'm like, they already are paying me to do that. So it was obviously born out of a need that I saw within the network marketing community or networking community. And it was just pretty much my desire to help the people that I had come to know and love.
Thank you so much, Laura. What would you say that is the impact on their businesses when they start really being in control and know how to design this message for themselves and then communicate it effectively?
Right. I think the biggest impact that I see is the confidence. I've seen amazing people who would literally fall apart when it was time to do their 30-second message, be able to stand up in front of a group, stomp their foot, give a really compelling 30-second message, and be beaming when they were done. Like they knew that they nailed it. They knew that it really connected with who they are and their audience. Just to watch the confidence level of some of these amazing, incredibly talented people just go through the roof was it had such a huge impact, not only on their ability to communicate, but also by helping them to attract more clients. And at the end of the day, that's what it's really about, helping people understand what you do so that they can either A, hire you themselves, or B, refer you to people that they know need your help.
I love that. What I find very powerful personally, Laura, is that, and I have this also from my background in the corporate world, is that the moment we start being brief and really to the direct, straightforward to the subject, there is some power because there is clarity. It's like a purification process that goes behind, and then you go straight to the point that you want to touch. Would you say that this 30-second message also gives clarity and helps business owners to focus more than what they are doing right now with maybe long versions of their messages?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I teach in a lot of the work that I do, is really becoming very specific about who it is that you work with and what you deliver day in and day out. Your 30-second message is not about telling people everything that you do or educating your audience on all of your work and how you do it and all the modalities that you use. It's really designed to be very specific, very clear, very concise, in order to attract people to have a deeper conversation with you. It's not about educating them so that they can walk away and say, oh, okay, I'll store that in the back of my mind. No, it's about creating curiosity and getting people to want to know more. That's how you start building relationships. And that's really what networking is about. It's about building relationships with the people in your community so that they can then become advocates for you.
I love that. I remember that you mentioned this also in our live session about networking. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that anything changed with the virtual environment in the way we network with each other?
And that's the $1 million question. I actually just posted a blog regarding the pros and cons of networking in person as opposed to virtual. I think we're going to see a very varied way that people start networking. There's a lot of people who can't wait to go back to in-person networking. And personally, I love connecting. I love people. I'm a hugger by nature. That personal touch is so important for me. When I first started networking virtually, it was really hard because I love reading body language. So when you're only seeing people from here up, there are some challenges, but you learn over time to make it work for you and to become more very succinct and very clear in reaching out to people and getting to know them. I think the biggest thing that we're going to see in the virtual versus in-person networking is the amount of time that we're spending, right? We've become very efficient with our time being in a virtual environment. We're not driving places. We're not spending time in the car. We're not spending time waiting for a meeting to start. We're in the virtual arena, we could actually be working right up until the minute the meeting starts. Yeah. And sometimes I've seen people work while the meeting's going on, which we could have a whole conversation around that one. But yeah, I think there's going to be a hybrid for a lot of people that will want to continue with the virtual. And here's why. For me, virtual has opened up such a huge opportunity for me to connect with people on a global stage. I'm connecting with people all around the world. I mean, you and I are,
yes,
half a world apart. And it's amazing to be able to communicate with people. Like, the barriers are gone. So if you are very focused on a local business, yes, in-person networking may be a better option for you. But if you don't have that barrier and you're able to work with anybody anywhere, why not continue with the virtual aspect of networking? So it's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of people seeing. I had one person recently tell me that she went back to an in-person event, and the hardest part for her was planning and preparing like an hour before, so that she would make sure that she was on time, and traffic, and because even traffic has changed because so many people are still working from home. People aren't, like, our traffic patterns have changed over the last couple of years even. So we have to plan so much more for that in-person meeting.
Thank you so much, Laura, for all this information. And I love your wisdom, and I can see the experience and the knowledge that you have around these subjects. And I would like to ask you, do you think that every business owner should incorporate in their business strategy networking?
I think a lot of it will depend on the type of business. But yes, for the most part, I believe business owners should engage in networking, whether it's being involved more in community events where it's actually being involved in a networking group, a chamber of some sort, whatever it is. I think that there's so much importance and so much ability to grow our businesses with networking and creating those relationships with the people in the network, because those relationships will help us expand our business and get more eyes on our business, but it'll also help to sustain us when times get hard and you need someone to talk to, right? Sometimes being a business owner can be very lonely. And I think that networking gives you the ability to have a circle of people around you who are willing to support you when things do get hard.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned that this networking people you are networking with can actually become the advocates for your business. How can we do that? I have never networked myself, to be entirely honest. I never went into this part. And I always wondered, how do you do it? Because I know that you cannot expect that those people you are networking with are going to become your clients. And I can see it sometimes that you get in contact with someone and then immediately you have expectations. And I know this doesn't work like that. How do you do it in a natural way?
That's a really great question. And I think that the biggest thing is to remember that you're absolutely right. Not everyone is going to be your client, but they may know someone who is. So it's really important to build relationships with the people in your network, help them understand who you serve and how you help them. And get them to ask them to, hey, if you hear someone saying, oh my gosh, I hate networking because I have to do my 30-second message every time, that's a perfect referral for me. Please connect us. That's so important to help your audience, the people in your network, know who it is that you're looking to be connected with. Sometimes it also takes the onus off of the people in the room when you're talking about what you do and you say, look, who do you know? As opposed to, you're my ideal client, right? So they go, oh, great, she doesn't want me to, I don't have to worry about her thinking that I'm going to be her client. But now you've got them thinking about who is it that they know that you could help. And they want to help. People inherently are designed to be, it's the creature within us is like so designed to serve other people, right? That's what we're called to do. And when we know how to help you, of course, we're going to start looking for people that would be a good fit. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, one of the things that I coach a lot of my clients on is creating almost like a master sheet. And it's something that I've been working on. I really need to do a handout, a PDF that people can download, and with an example of, here's who it is, here's who I'm looking to meet, here's what I do, this is what you need to listen for, and here's how to introduce us. So giving someone, whether it's, a real quick blurb of what it is that you do and why you think you should be connecting with them, like an introduction email. A lot of times that's all I do. On LinkedIn, I will introduce people a lot of times. Hey, I think you guys would be a great fit. Here's why. And I explain why I think they should connect. And then I just say, I'm going to let you guys take it from here. It's a very simple way to connect the people in your network. And you're also then giving them an example of how then they can do the same for you.
Yes, that's awesome. That really sounds awesome. And I am going to try it as well and see how it goes. And I will let you know. Something that I also learned, and maybe it's linked to the message, to the 30-second message, is that we need to repeat our story, our life lessons, and the audience needs to hear it over and over again. There are statistics, people say that people need to hear it at least 6 times in order for them to start believing and feel it. Do you think it is the same for the 30-second message, that they need to hear it over and over again about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, there's a lot of different trains of thought on that. And I get asked quite often, how often should I change up my 30-second message? Should I have the same 30-second message for every meeting when I'm meeting with the same people every single week? And my answer to that is yes. And the reason for that is when you when you have a message that's really defined exactly who it is that you serve, how you help them, and you repeat that over and over again, what you're doing is you're creating a pattern and you're planting that seed in the mind of your audience that they will know who to look for, so that when they are in front of someone who is struggling with exactly what it is that you help people with, they can then repeat your message for you. I've been in a networking of a group for a while, and there was a gentleman who used to come, and he was a great orator, and he would do his 30-second message every week. It was spot on. And one week he wasn't there, and people were like, oh, John's not here. I'm like, oh, can I do John's commercial? And I stood up and I repeated it almost word for word. And everybody's like, how did you do that? I said, wait, how many of you can raise your hand and say that you were actually repeating it with me? And more than half the room raised their hand like, oh yeah, I know John's message like inside now. I'm like, that's because he repeats it and he says it with a lot of energy. He says it with a lot of heart, and he delivers it with like real intention, but it's the same message week in and week out. And that's so that people will remember him. And people will be able then to refer him when they're in front of people that would be a perfect client.
I love that. You mentioned something which is very dear to me, the energy level and the fact that you have to put energy behind the words. And this is something that is really close to my heart, because I believe that everything needs energy. You cannot just go there whenever you are presenting something and be like, oh, like boring, so to speak. What would you say is the impact of someone who has maybe a great message in terms of words, but doesn't deliver it very well, compared to someone who maybe didn't craft it very well, didn't know exactly the words to put, but has high energy? What do you think is the difference between the two?
I, totally believe that what you put into it has a lot to do with what you believe. And if you're showing up and you're just kind of saying the same thing, and it's really boring, and your voice is monotone, and nobody's really paying attention, as opposed to, oh my gosh, you're showing up and you're really happy, and oh, everybody wants to spend time with you. Your energy is directly connected with how you serve your audience. Now, that being said, if you're a funeral director, it might be a little bit different. People want you to be calm, but you can still bring great energy. Right. There's still an opportunity to be positive and encouraging, and really that depth of personality has to come through in your message. When somebody is just kind of repeating day in and day out what they do, it almost makes you think that they don't either believe in what they do, or they don't enjoy what they do.
Thank you so much, Laura. I love all of this, and I really love your topic. I find it very, very important. And I would just like to ask you at the end of our interview today, if you can give us a bit more details about what we could include in our message. What are the elements that we should be aware of when drafting our 30-second message?
Right. So the biggest thing to remember is that it's, number one, it's not about you, it's about them. It's about your ideal client. And really understanding how that impactful message really starts with understanding who your client is and who you're trying to attract to your business. So having that depth and that real defined client avatar is so important to every business. It's kind of the marketing 101 rules when you think about it. So marketing 101, and you can watch TV now. If you know the formula that I'm going to share with you, you'll watch television very differently from now on. And because commercials have every single piece of this, it's what we've been using for years to attract people to products and services, right? It's that marketing piece that a lot of people have been missing in their businesses, because they've become real flowery, or they just don't understand there's specific components to your message. So in your 30-second message, you want to make sure that, number one, you're identifying who your ideal client is. Number two, what is the pain or problem that they're struggling with, right? What is it that keeps them awake at night? That problem is so intentional, but it's also what you help people overcome, right? When you want to make sure that it's addressing what that you help them overcome. And then the other piece is, how do you solve the problem for them? So it's what you deliver. It's not the modality. It's not the how. It's really the result. And then the last piece is always making sure that, well, actually there's two pieces, that your call to action, which needs to be extremely intentional and strong. Mine is pretty much schedule a call with me today. Or, you could say, visit my website, sign up for my course, buy my book, whatever it is that you want them to do. You have to have a strong call to action, because once people understand that you can help them, they need to know what you want them to do next. The call to action is so imperative, and yet so many people leave it out of their content. They leave it out of their message. They just forget to put a call to action in. It's almost like we're afraid to ask people to hire us, right? And at the end of the day, if they need our help, they want to know how to connect with us. What is it? What's the next step? And then the last piece is really your name and your company. Obviously, you want to make sure that you include that. But I always tell people to save it for last. And here's why. If you say your name and your company in the very beginning, you may lose people's attention. What you say, the first thing that comes out of your mouth really needs to be very impactful and grab people's attention to get them to lean in and want to listen to what you have to say. You really only have about the first 7 seconds of what you say for people to decide whether they're going to listen to you or not. Because frankly, they're busy trying to figure out either what they're going to say, or they're still thinking about what the last guy said. It's truth. That's how it is. But we need to make sure that the first thing out of our mouth is very impactful. So don't spend time saying your name and company. Save that for last, because once you have their intention, give them your name and company so they have an opportunity to write it down, so that they remember to connect with you before leaving the meeting, or to follow up, whatever that call to action is that you just stated. What do you want them to do either before they leave the meeting or right after they get home or back to the office?
Thank you so much, Laura. This is so helpful for our audience. I am sure that everyone is learning a lot from you today. I would like to close our interview today by asking you, who are you serving and how can people contact you? And maybe you can give us also your 30-second message.
So at 30 Second Success, we help people develop their 30-second message for networking and video. And we really strive to help the small business owner and professionals with our workforce marketing program, as well as our 30-second success formula. So if you know someone who's struggling to effectively communicate who they are, whether it's for networking or video, or even in their content, schedule a call with me today. Laura Templeton, 30-second success.
Love that. Thank you so much.
So I answered your question and I gave you my 30-second commercial.
Yes, exactly. That's what I wanted to say. It's very powerful because you really go straight to the point, and I love that. Thank you so much, Laura, for being with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time.
I am honored to have you here, and I learned a lot from you. I hope that we will stay connected.
We absolutely will. Thank you so much, Diana. I really enjoy your podcast.
Thank you so much. And for those of you listening to us, stay connected, because there is so much more to come.